Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalist Roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including the state legislature wrestling with last week's abortion ruling from the Arizona Supreme Court. Journalist Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Ray Stern of the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com, Jeremy Duda of Axios Phoenix, and Jim Small of the Arizona Mirror. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Ray, we're going to start with you. We're going to start with the big story of the week, what happened at the legislature this week. We'll start with the House blocked. I'll just get out of the way. Tell us what happened.
Well, I think there was an expectation that they might be able to take off in the House with this repeal. They had Matt Gress, one Republican, down, but they didn't have a second Republican, it turns out. David Cook was expected to vote yes on the repeal, but he suddenly felt that he needed to pay homage to the Speaker of the House and this Rule 31, which says that you can't change a rule to do something like bring up this late repeal unless the Speaker approves. So the fact is that with 31 members in the House, you can pretty much change that rule, but David Cook decided that he didn't want to do that. So they only ended up with 30 votes, and that wasn't enough to get the repeal moving.
And that's in the House, Jeremy. And again, this is repealing the 1864 ban that the Supreme Court basically said is the law of the land, I guess, for now, or for, who knows? I mean, we got to deal with that time frame later. But again, as Ray mentioned, needed just 2 Republicans to join for the block. Only got 1.
Yeah, there were 2 who seem to be subject to a lot of pretty intense lobbying over there. Cook, who, as we've seen, has a kind of a habit of bucking leadership and being the nail that kind of stands out over there. And the other is Tim Dunn from Yuma, who does not have that habit. But he was, and he told me afterwards that he does want to see the 1864 ban repealed, but he's committed to more talks with his caucus. Sounds like he's not enthusiastic about rolling Speaker Toma. And that seems to be where they're at over there. They got 1 Republican, as Ray mentioned, Matt Gress, who seems to be very enthusiastic about doing that, but they cannot get another. And there's a general sense over there that if this actually went up for a vote, this bill to repeal the ban, you'd get 32, 33, 34 Republican or votes with a few Republicans in there, 2, 3, 4, 5 Republicans maybe, but no one wants to cross the Speaker, and that is where you have this stalemate. You only have one Republican who's willing to do that, willing to cross that line, and so far he has not been able to bring anyone else over with him.
Is that what happened to David Cook?
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, I think the day before he spoke with journalists over at the Arizona Agenda and basically told them, flat out, look, I'm not going to vote against the Speaker. I'm not going to vote to essentially rolled leadership in order to force this thing to a vote. This thing that ostensibly he supports and that these other folks support, they support it. They have these, their conviction is that this 1864 law is wrong, but they won't do what's necessary to actually take the vote that they say they ostensibly, I guess, want to take. So you're in this situation where, I guess, for them, voting to reinstate abortion in Arizona, as people who ran on pro-life campaigns, is an easier thing for them to do than to vote against Republican leadership, who is saying that they have no intention of letting this bill come to the floor.
Interesting. And Ray, in the Senate, though, a little different story here, as I guess officially it's there, the repeal.
Right. They were able to create a new bill, essentially, in the Senate because there were 2 Republicans to side with Democrats and vote to create this bill. And there isn't a Rule 31 in the Senate, so there was no worry that they were going to roll the president, President Warren Peterson, I suppose. And so there just wasn't that problem. But there is a problem with the fact that this bill, if it continues to move forward, is going to have to get to the House eventually. Toma is going to have to approve it. He says he won't. So somebody is going to have to roll the Speaker, I guess.
I was going to say, eventually something's got to give here, Jeremy. I mean, even if something happens in the Senate, something has to happen in the House as well, and it's not happening.
Yeah, I mean, the Senate only gets you halfway there, and it doesn't matter how many Republicans over there are willing to break ranks with leadership and go with the Democrats on that. Ben Toma, he's very pro-life, very anti-abortion. He's running in a very tough Republican primary for Congress, and he is drawing this line in the sand. He's not willing to budge on that, and he's going to wait and see if any of his more than one of his members are. And from there, it'll take a couple of weeks to get over there for procedural reasons because they're only meeting once a week in both chambers. So I think it's expected a week from this next Wednesday is when the Senate would pass that, if presuming they have the votes, which they obviously do. And then it goes over to the House. But then what do you do then? And in the meantime, I'm pretty sure every week until then, we will still see the same maneuverings in the House, people trying to force the vote, 29 Democrats and 1 Republican, waiting to see if one more GOP member is going to come along. But they don't have to do a late introduction of a bill like they did in the Senate. They have a bill. It's just that it got, I think, triple assigned to 3 committees by Ben Toma and never got heard.
Yeah.
So either way, they can use the bill they have there. They can take the bill they get from the Senate. Either way, they still need 31, and they've only got 30.
Over in the Senate, Shauna Bullock and T.J. Shope were among those siding with Democrats.
They were, and they were, both of them, after the Arizona Supreme Court issued its ruling saying that this 1864 law trumps the 2022 15-week restriction, both of them very quickly came out and said that they thought that was the wrong decision, and that the legislature needs to act to basically, if you repeal that 1864 law, then you go back to the 2022 law, and so then you have abortions up to 15 weeks.
Let's say it keeps rolling in the Senate. Let's say something happens in the Senate and it is sent over to the House. Does that increase pressure in the House?
Yeah, it probably does to some degree, but I don't know, whether it's going to change anything. I think that, the longer this goes on, I think the more pressure is going to be applied regardless. Certainly the Senate, I think, acting and showing that they're willing to repeal this law will increase pressure. I think it's going to be a matter of what happens. I think with Republicans are trying to scramble to figure out what do they do on the issue of abortion. How can they try to mitigate some of this really negative, bad campaign PR that this Supreme Court ruling brings onto them? And so are they going to bring forward their own options? What are those going to look like? Are they even going to get support to be able to pass? It might take those things coming forward and possibly failing in order to really force people to decide that, okay, now we really have to act and we have to move forward.
Interesting. As far as who's helped and who's hurt by all of this, what are you seeing? Matt Gress, is he just between a rock and a hard place? Bullock and T.J. Shope and over on the Senate side, what
they really are. I mean, they're in swing districts where it could go either way for them, and this is really bad news for them because the fact that you've got this 1864 lying there that could possibly be enforced and end abortion in Arizona is a real problem in terms of it will drive more Democrats to the polls to vote for this ballot measure that actually would enshrine a right to abortion in the state constitution. And so that could be just enough to tip over some of these Republicans in these competitive districts. And not coincidentally, that includes Matt Gress. And then in the Senate, Shauna Bullock and T.J. Shope are also in competitive districts. So they are concerned about getting this repeal done. But it's kind of a two-step process, really, for Republicans. They need to get the repeal done in order to sort of heal their political problem, but then also offer something else for the ballot, which is what this leaked memo explains in great detail that we got this week, where the Republicans are basically saying we need to put something else on the ballot to draw votes away from this other ballot measure.
Yeah, talk more about this leaked memo here, Jeremy. It sounds like we'll say it's complementary, but it's really not. We'll say it's 15 weeks, but it's really not. There's a 6-week. What are they going to do? How many things are going to shove on the ballot here?
I don't know. I think we had 3 possible ballot measures on there with an alternate for one of the ones, so maybe 4. So you have something that would go to the Constitution that would not create a right to an abortion. It wouldn't ban it. It would leave it up to the legislature to decide and enshrine some of the restrictions that we see now on minors, on abortions for based on race and sex, things like that. Then you would have, they call that complementary. Now then you have 2 that would be directly competing. One would be, as they put it, a 15-week ban or 14-week ban disguised as a 15-week ban because of the way it's timed, which is not going to sound great if they have to try and pitch that to voters. They've already kind of acknowledged they're intentionally using deceptive language there. And then a 6-week ban, which I guess would actually probably be a 5-week ban disguised as a 6-week ban, which is effectively almost a total ban because most women who get abortions do not actually know they're pregnant by that point. Ironically, if they just repeal the ban that the Arizona Supreme Court upheld, then you have you have an alternative. You have 15 weeks on the books. And the Republicans who oppose the ballot measure can go out and say, hey, you don't need to vote for this. We already have a law that says 15 weeks. That's when the overwhelming majority of abortions happens within 15 weeks of pregnancy. And there's your alternative. A lot of this seems to be to kind of muddy the waters, to dilute votes, to siphon off votes. And we've seen things like this happen before. The Republican-controlled legislature will look at a citizen initiative it doesn't like and say, we'll refer something over to the ballot to compete with it. It kind of blows up in their faces sometimes, if I recall correctly. But the interesting part is that we've known about the abortion initiative for ages. Like, if they really wanted an alternative, they could have started working on this a long time ago, and nobody really thought to until this grenade blew up in all of our laps last week with the Arizona Supreme Court.
So flooding the zone is a strategy, Ray. But was this leaked on purpose? Was this sloppily handled? How did this get out?
It's that, I think there's suspicion that maybe it was leaked on purpose as a trial balloon or something like that. But there were a couple of things in the leaked plan that made you think that this wasn't or that this was an accident. As Jeremy just mentioned, the plan says that we're going to create something, and we'll call it the 15-week law, but that will be deceptive, actually, because it'll actually be a 14-week law, and the cutoff will be at the beginning of the 15 weeks, so you don't really get 15 weeks. So, yeah, that seemed weird. But there's another major problem for the Republicans' plan. First of all, they kind of do need another ballot measure to compete with because the 15-week law that's there now does not include an exception for rape or incest cases. It's a major concern, even for a lot of Republicans. But if they try to do a ballot measure themselves, because they have to, obviously, Governor Hobbs isn't going to approve what they do, but they have to actually get all together to make this ballot measure happen. That's going to be a real problem for them, too. Democrats aren't going to vote for that, and they've got a split caucus.
What do you think, Jim? I mean, how many referrals could happen? I mean, one for sure, you think?
Well, I don't know how many will actually happen.
Yes.
I think it's a matter of how many are they going to propose and what are they going to come out with and even try to get through their caucus. I mean, I think Ray's exactly right. I don't know that the votes exist in the way, for what we've seen and in the way we've seen this caucus react to the Supreme Court ruling. I don't know that the votes exist. I think you have a large contingent of Republicans at the legislature who are perfectly fine with what the Supreme Court did and would don't want to. Basically, they got the Holy Grail. They got the Supreme Court to give them the Holy Grail of what the pro-life movement has been pushing for the last 40 years. And so now their decision is to walk back from that and to say, oh boy, we got what we wanted, but we really didn't want that. And so now we're going to give voters a chance to I guess, reinstitute abortion in Arizona. I don't see that getting the 31 or 16 votes it needs to among Republicans.
I don't see Kathy Herod being all that excited about that either, and that makes a big difference down there.
It does, and she put out a statement I think it was right before they met on Wednesday that was very clearly aimed at this idea of the repeal. But I think you can read into that a lot about the prospect of these ballot measures. I know we and others, I think, tried to get comments from her when that document got leaked, and she and Center for Arizona Policy, basically said, we're not going to talk about this. We're going to keep our powder dry. And I do think that they would be likely to be opposed to it, for the same reasons that they're opposed to repealing the 1864 law, because that's what they want, and that's the victory that they want.
Yeah, I was going to say, Center for Arizona Policy supporting a 15-week ban on abortion doesn't make sense, does it?
No, and it doesn't make sense for a lot of the lawmakers who are very staunch allies of theirs down there. We heard a lot of them talking on the floor before the vote on Wednesday and in the days since then talking about holding the line. I mean, remember, the Republicans have one vote majority in each chamber. And unless they get Democratic votes, which they won't for any of these, they cannot afford to lose a single member, which means all it takes is one member in either chamber saying abortion is banned now, we are not going to vote to do anything that might actually change that. And I'm willing to bet there's going to be a lot of Republicans in each chamber who are not willing to do that.
Okay, last point on this. What happens next?
Well, on Wednesday, we're going to see if the Senate can advance this bill that they started. That's not a sure thing, but it could happen. And if it does, then it'll still need another week before it goes over to the House. But also next Wednesday, as Jeremy mentioned, the House could try to continue to move this other bill that they have there, see if they can get another Republican vote. Maybe shame Republicans if they don't do it. So that's probably what will happen next week.
What do you see? What's on the calendar here, Jeremy?
I think the Senate bill will keep moving forward. I mean, it's just a procedural move on Wednesday, just to have the second read before it goes up for a final vote the following week. The House, I think we're going to see another dozen procedural votes like we did this past week. And my guess is probably a lot of 30-30 votes on that. Again, we'll see. If David Cook told me he's not going to roll the speaker, and he's not going to even vote for the ban unless he actually wants an exception in the 15-week law for rape and incest. So he wants that attached to it. And if you start attaching things get really complicated. And then I think it probably comes down to Tim Dunn. He seemed very conflicted after the vote on Wednesday. He was getting his arm twisted by both sides pretty strongly, and might come down to whether he's willing to be the one in his very, very red district to be the one who rolls the speaker.
I think it's going to be Groundhog Day for what we just saw on Wednesday. Like Jeremy said, I mean, it's going to be dueling, all these parliamentary votes and, these motions about substitute motions and suspend a rule and temporary rule. And I would expect that it's all going to come out, like Jeremy said, 30-30 votes. Democrats are going to then, be able to complain about that Republicans aren't stepping up, even to support something that they support, that they're not going to step up and make it happen.
And even if something happens in the Senate, it usually takes 3 days or something for this to move ahead. I mean, 3 days now means 3 weeks, does it not? I mean, we're working on dinosaur time, it seems like.
It does. I think it's really important to remember that the legislature is meeting 1 day a week right now.
Yes.
They're meeting just on Wednesdays, ostensibly, so that way Republican leaders can, work with the governor's office to try to hammer out a budget deal. So when you're only coming in once a week, yeah, you're right. I mean, anything that requires 3 days under the Constitution is going to require 3 weeks to be done.
On the plus side, for the extra week, though, they're going to be getting constituent calls, finding out what polls are saying, and the pressure will keep increasing. So maybe we'll have a surprise in the House, and somebody will come forward, and then it will move.
Sticking with you here, Ray, who is Austin Smith, and why is he not running for re-election?
Austin Smith is a first-time lawmaker from not Whitman, but Surprise. And he is also a Turning Point executive. Turning Point is a pro-Trump and pro-Republican movement across the country that's based here in Phoenix. And he's been working there as an executive until, I guess, yesterday when he resigned. And that's because he's being accused of forging signatures for his sort of re-election campaign petitions that he needs to turn in.
Yeah, Jeremy, 100 signatures filed looked like his very own signature. 2 other signatures from people say they never signed this thing. He is an election denier. He says these things happen. Apparently he's right.
Well, he has a lot of strong opinions about what he feels like is the lack of signature verification on ballots at Maricopa County. And turns out some folks went out and tried to verify the signatures on his own petitions and couldn't do it. You have page after page of signatures, and we saw 2 of them that were part of the court filing, and they say there's a lot more. 10 signatures per page, I think, obviously all written by the same person, and then they included a couple of examples of Austin Smith's own handwriting from his petitions, and it looks suspiciously similar. Smith says, well, I'm innocent, I didn't do anything, this is just a Democrat plot to get me, but he said he's not running for re-election, he doesn't want to fight it. If he gets found, if a judge finds in a court of law that he did forge a signature, he is not only booted from the ballot, but he can't run for office for, I believe, 5 years. So the stakes are pretty high. And right now, this is not looking particularly good for him.
Yeah, well, Jim, I would imagine then, shouldn't there be some sort of big-time investigation? We finally got that election problem, and we've got the guy, and the accusations are there, allegations are there. When's the investigation start?
Well, dropping out does not end any of those investigations, and I don't think it gets him out of jeopardy for both that 5-year ban or for potential criminal charges. And the Arizona Secretary of State's office sent this matter to the Attorney General's office as one of, I think, a dozen or 12 or 13 different nominating petitions, suspicious signatures that they sent over to the AG's office. AG's office is, as typically they do, they won't comment. They, are reluctant to comment on anything that they get or any investigations they may or may not have. So they're not saying what it is they're doing about it, but I think it stands to reason that given the fact that this is, an elected official and just how heinous the allegations are and how obvious, when you kind of look at these signatures, that it's very obvious that there was something going on with these signatures and these voter names. I would imagine that they're going to go after it and go after it probably pretty intensely.
Yeah, and isn't he like the vice chair of that committee that's looking at the Attorney General for malfeasance and all sorts of
Right.
other?
So ironic that he's looking into the attorney general, but now she's looking back at him.
Yeah. Holy smokes. All right. So
One other thing I think it should be noted that Smith was one of 2 incumbents this week to end their campaigns. We had Melody Hernandez, a Democrat in Tempe, who was running as House rep, who's running for the Senate in her district, who dropped out because she was being challenged for allegedly not having enough valid signatures and having too many outstanding campaign finance violation fees to run. Both of these people are in unlosable districts for their parties, but now their parties do not have enough candidates for their seats. There's no other Democratic candidate for Senate in that district. There's only one Republican candidate for the 2 House seats in Smith's district. Both parties, who are both scrambling for control of the legislature, which is completely up for grabs this year, now have to rely on write-in campaigns in the primary to actually get enough candidates on the ballot in the general election. So this is a kind of an added complication for both parties, who cannot really afford a lot of distractions or complications right now.
all right, Jim, who is Justin Heap? And he's got something going on here.
Yes, Justin Heap is a Republican legislator who is running for Maricopa County Recorder against Stephen Richer, and announced his campaign several weeks ago, and essentially running on the grounds that elections need to be handled better, and that Stephen Richer, who has obviously been at the center of a lot of election discussions and a lot of election, conspiracies and allegations and everything, that he has done a bad job, and so he is leaving the state legislature to go run for this. What's at issue right now is, that again, the Secretary of State's office got a complaint about a candidate and sent it off to the Attorney General's office to launch an investigation. This is about his campaign finance reports and whether he was accurately reporting the money that his campaign received, because essentially there were a series of PACs, 5 or 6 different political action committees that gave money to him, and that their donations, their contributions were nowhere to be found on his report, which said that he raised no money from political committees. And so that's an obvious discrepancy. Secretary of State's office looked at it and said, yeah, there's something hinky here. We need to send this off to the AG's office for further investigation.
Yeah, and that was the late deadline as well. Filed past the deadline, did he not?
Filed past the deadline. Let me just also say that this is partially a problem, I think, with the Secretary of State's office and a nexus to the AG's office in terms of not really looking at their campaign finance filings as well as they should be. So there are other legislators actually that have filed campaign finance reports that look weird. And I would just mention one, Representative Lydia Hernandez has filed her reports on time for the last few filings, but they're all zeros. And so she said basically, in these forms that she hasn't gotten any donated money or spent any money, even though she's told me that, in fact, she has. So there's a few people that they need to be going after.
Yeah, I mean, really these things only get looked at by political opponents and journalists, and only generally when there's a reason. Heap, no one probably ever would have noticed this, except he popped up one day to run against Stephen Richer on an election denier adjacent platform at the very least, and backed by many election deniers from the legislature, Austin Smith included, I believe. And so basically that day, people started looking at the Secretary of State's campaign finance website and saying, oh, hey, Freeport-McMoran reported giving him money, APS reported giving him money, Fraternal Order of Police, the realtors. It's not in his report. And this looks particularly bad because he is running to be the top elections official in Maricopa County, and he is accused of not properly reporting contributions. He clearly did not file his reports on time, weeks late. He's had some other issues since he's been in the legislature. So none of this is a good looking, for someone who's running on the platform of cleaning up elections in Maricopa County.
His excuse is that he didn't want to take these checks, essentially. So he was just letting them pile up and not depositing them into the bank, and he was going to give them back. He just hasn't done that yet.
Not yet.
He's in the process of.
Okay, so we're still waiting on that. All right, before we go, we got a couple of vetoes, Jim. Real quickly here, school board partisanship and 10 Commandments were the ones that kind of caught my attention here. Governor says no.
Yeah, school boards in Arizona, those races are nonpartisan, like most city council races and a number of other races. There was an effort from it was Justine Wadsack, a state senator from the Tucson area, who was pushing this and basically said this will give voters more clarity as to who they're electing for school boards. She's been very active before coming to the legislature, was active in kind of the school board arena, in particular in reaction to to COVID-19 protocols and things that were implemented in schools down in southern Arizona. The governor said, yeah, we don't need this. This is unnecessary. 10 Commandments in schools would have made it permissible for teachers and schools to both display the 10 Commandments and also teach them in class. And there were a lot of very, serious questions about the constitutionality of doing this, and the governor cited those when she rejected the bill.
Posted and read aloud, was that part of this as well? Part of this bill?
That would have been allowed, at least until it went to court and somebody, a judge potentially shot it down. I think it should be noted real quick that Hobbs vetoed 13 bills this week. That gets through 185 career vetoes. The previous record by Janet Napolitano, 181 vetoes. Took her 6 years to do that. Hobbs is not done with her second session. She's already beaten that record, largely because she completely blew the doors off the single session record last year. It was 58, and she vetoed 143. She is now the career veto leader in Arizona after 1.5 sessions.
Yeah, strong rookie season, but sophomore slump, is she going to reach those levels again in her second year?
Well, I don't think so, because Republicans have kind of learned a little bit. They're not sending her quite as much of the bills that she will reject.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Boy, a lot going on this week. Thank you so much for joining us and offering your analysis. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona PBS is your connection to Arizona arts, culture, history, politics, and education through locally produced programs made possible by viewers like you. Our Arizona PBS Broadcast Society includes individuals